Hello and welcome to the mill. I am your host, Dusty Crane, and today we are going to be talking Wingspan strategy. I am in the Tabletopia instance of Wingspan, and we're just going to go ahead and draw a few starting hands. Look at what we got, look at what the bonus tiles are, and see what our bonus cards are, and make some decisions. I think that's probably the best way to go into it. Let's start by I want to draw a little bit of recognition to a community member here. Matt Wu posted a great initial strategy guide out on BGG, and I will put a link in the video description. He just lays out some of the initial strategies that you might be considering, such as whether you want to spread out your birds or whether you want to concentrate to a particular habitat. He talks about initial strategies like, do you want to go big bird? Do you want to go egg spam? Do you want to go flocking? If you're unfamiliar, basically those three different types are when you're doing a big bird strategy is you're really working on putting a lot of birds on the mat. That's what you want to try and fill up your bird sanctuary or wildlife preserve just as much as you can. The egg strategy is just each one of those eggs is worth a victory point at the end of the game, so maybe you want to load the mat up with as many eggs as your bird cards will hold. The flocking strategy is there's a lot of cards in the game that when you activate it, you can pay a bird card and then tuck a bird in your hand behind that card, and you end up creating a flock of birds. And each one of those cards that you put behind another bird on the player mat is worth a victory point. It's a really good read. It's really well thought out when to play birds, what to do when you are first drafting, which is what we're going to do right now. I have a freshly set up game of Wingspan. We have our 5 starting cards and our 2 bonus cards. You can see that we have our starting resources here, one of each kind, and now let's go ahead and look at what we have on offer. Let's start with our bonus cards. So we have a backyard birder, we have a large bird specialist, which it says are 35% of the cards. Now let's look at our birds. We have a northern harrier, it's a predator bird, black tern. If I don't leave these up long enough, just go through and pause the video and look through. Woodpecker, we have a wren, and we have a bunting. Now, when I'm considering what birds I want to take first and what bonus cards I'm going to take, looking at the percentage, these are 42% of birds, but we need to have a lot of birds on the mat to get that 6 bonus points. We need to have 7 birds, which if you are going to go ahead and do a big bird strategy, then maybe that works out for you. Birds with large wingspan, 65 centimeters, and we can see that's 35% of the cards. We actually have a few of those big birds right in our starting hand, so that might be a good strategy for us. What was that, 65? Yeah, and so that one would qualify, this one no, this one no, and that one no. But we do have a 1 large bird at least out of the 4 or 5 or 6 that we need, worth 4 points or less. That one would qualify, no, yes, yes, and no. So we can look on the bonus cards and maybe help us make some determinations, but one thing that has been established as being important is you need to get birds out early to get that engine going. And when we make that consideration, we also need to look at food costs. Now, what I like about the bird of prey here, the harrier, is it's worth an alright amount of points. It also hunts against the bird deck in terms of that flocking strategy. You're still tucking cards behind this one. It has a low cost, which is just the 1 rodent, and we can play it either in the grassland, which will help us get eggs, or we can play it in the wetlands, which will help us get more bird cards. I really think this is going to be part of my first take, and I'm probably going to go ahead and make sure that I have the food for that too, is one of the things I want to consider. This black tern, another thing I'm looking at though is I want my engine to be really efficient or actually produce more actions. I like the fact that I have a lot of cards on offer that have the brown band at the bottom. Especially nice that it's, we're gaining food. These ones are a little iffy for me to gain this type of food from the bird feeder if there is one, because that's the big condition, is if there is one. The same deal with this. you're kind of at the mercy. Whereas, I mean, I know you're at the mercy with the Predator cards, but for whatever reason, with my experience, it's been a little more iffy. Now, I like this card too because it's a star nest type. One of the things we should be considering when we're looking at these cards as well is, you know, what type of end of round bonuses. So for the first round, we are going to have a focus on birds that are in the woodlands. So in terms of birds that I have on offer that can help me with that have a low cost, is the woodpecker and also the wren. Looking at round 2, which you know we're always going to be working ahead, this is actually birds with that cavity nest type, where building the nest inside the tree that have eggs. So that would be the next thing we're looking at. So for this particular hand, I do like the harrier. I do like the woodpecker is going to help in a couple of regards for the first 2 rounds goals. The wren too. So now my decision kind of becomes a matter of, you know, what food or resources am I going to take? For this one, I see that the wren it needs a invertebrate or a worm and a berry. The woodpecker takes a worm and grain. And so what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go ahead and take these 3 cards: the harrier, the woodpecker, and the wren. I'm going to take those 3, and then the 2 food types I'm going to take are worm and rodent. So that gives me a couple of options, the order I want to play. Looking at the cards that are on offer here, I know that some people say you should consider this. I'm kind of on the fence about that because whether or not you can get those cards is really kind of dependent on whether you're the first player or second player, and since that's randomized after this point, I don't know that you want to make any like really big strategic decisions based on that alone. So in terms of my bonus card, I think of the cards that I took, I think I would probably go with the backyard birder, because in my starting hand I've got let's see here, every single one of my birds that I picked for my starting hand applies to that. Now yes, it's 5 to 6 birds, but I mean, and the points are between 3 and 6, but I mean, this is another, I guess, strategy note here too, is just like when we talk about side strategies and whether you want to go ahead and work toward your objective, these are just bonuses. So if you don't end up hitting it, it's only 3 points. I'm going to go ahead and set up another game here, and we'll look through that hand and make another decision. For this particular setup, I think I am taking the harrier, the woodpecker, the wren, and I'm going for backyard birder. The food that I'm going to keep is the rodent token here. I'm going to take this worm or invertebrate because that needs those birds. So let's go ahead and randomize another one, see what we got. I'm not going to go into a lot of description. I'm just going to go ahead and show you what we're working with here. Ecologist, omnivore expert, Sandhill Crane, Eastern Screech Owl, Cerulean Warbler, boy, I probably butchered that, Snowy Egret, and Western Tanager. I definitely, most certainly butchered that one. Birds on offer. Our goals. Let's see here. That's only 10% of cards. I don't really care for either of these. So in terms of cheap starting cards, let's work on that too. I like having a Predator. I like that it's a low cost to play this bird. It's worth 4 points. We're kind of at the mercy of the dice, any dice that are outside of the bird feeder. I want to concentrate on these when activateds. Nice cheap entry. Ugh, and those are expensive. So I'm going to discard this one. I am going to discard this one. And what's this? When played 2 new bonus cards. That could actually help me. You know what? I think I will. I think I'm going to hang on to it. I think I will go ahead and I'm going to ignore this bonus card. And let's see here. For the food, I am going to take the worm, since all 3 of my birds can benefit from that. And I guess I'll just go ahead and go with grain, unless, let's see here. Good. Grain will work for all these birds if I was able to pick one of these up. And this hand will not necessarily help me a lot in terms of the goals, although if I get this one out and get a couple eggs in there, it's going to probably be hard to compete for most. Just depends on what else comes up. We do have the possibility of picking up a goldfinch. So yeah, for my other hand here, I think this is what I'm going with, is these 3 birds here and those 2 foods. I would really highly recommend that you check out Matt's blog post. He goes into a lot more detail, such as, you know, when it is a good idea to pick up those once between turns pink cards, whether or not bonus cards are really worth considering too heavily, your end of round bonuses. He has some opinions about whether or not those are even worth focusing on. All kinds of stuff. Whether or not you have egg-laying birds, your migrating bird strategy. You know, when the timing is to play birds, paying attention to your limited amount of actions. There's a ton of stuff. Although I think the most important thing that he emphasizes is really, really focus on that engine. Focus on these cards here that have these when activated powers. He likes the ones that allow you to tuck cards behind. You know, a bird like this is a one-time strategy. So there's a lot of good stuff in that forum. I really am looking forward to hearing what you guys come up with in terms of strategies as the game continues to be played more and more and sees more table time. I look forward to hearing if you would have drafted any cards any differently than I did, or started with any different bonus cards or different birds. Goodness knows I could certainly use a little bit of help in that regard. So that's all I have for you this week. I hope you guys have a great week. If you have any comments or questions, leave them there. Until next time, take it easy.